Hello everyone, this is Francis Araujo again. I was assigned Module 2 for this video, and the theory I have chosen is the objective theory. So as most of you guys know from reading our textbook and reading through Chapter 2, the objective theory is the assumption that there is only one truth, and this theory also finds cause and effect relationships. So for this theory, I can actually apply it to something that happened to me recently. So this past Wednesday, I went to the DPS to take my driving exam, which I passed. Going into this exam and going into the driving exam, I've always thought of it as a very interpretive test. For most of you, you know that interpretive theory means that there is multiple truths. So when I talked to my family and friends and loved ones, they always told me that the driving exam was a very easy exam and that I could go into it, do very well on the driving portion, backing up and reversing, and completely fail the parallel parking portion, and I'd still walk away with my driver's license. However, that is not the case at all. The test is actually a very objective test in which you have to do very well on all portions of the test to pass. So me going into it thinking interpretively that I'd be able to fail that portion and pass and get my driver's license, that was not the case at all. So like I said, it was a very objective test. Luckily, I was able to study, do well on that portion, and I passed the test. So now that you heard a little bit about my experience, I'm now going to go ahead and relate that to the theory. So in the theory, it's only one truth. So that means that that test was only pass or fail. There was only those two outcomes. Those were the truths. And that there's only, that there's a cause and effect. If I did not do well in the parallel parking, that was the cause. The effect would then be me not getting my driver's license. So for that experience, I feel that emotions played a big part of that. If I had gone into it overly confident, not studying, not driving, I would have failed that test. But because I was a bit nervous, I had a bit of natural fear, I feel that that made me more alert, more cautious, and more self-aware, and I was able to pass the test and do well on that portion. So now that I explained the theory and how it relates to my story, I can now show you how you can apply that theory and my experience to other parts of life. So one theory or one example that I feel is very, very relevant to us right now is academically. So if you go into a course thinking that you know everything about that subject, you might not dedicate time or energy towards that class. So the cause would be not studying. The effect would then be you failing the class or failing an exam that you had to study for but didn't. Another example would be a job interview. So for a lot of us, there are a lot of preparation that goes into job interviews. If you go into the job interview without preparing, without thinking of questions that they might ask beforehand, you might get passed up because the interview thinks that you're too overly confident and you might not be qualified for the position. So the cause, not preparing, effect, you getting passed up for the job. So now that I've gone over my experience, how that experience relates to the theory, I'm now going to go over the conclusion. So in conclusion, seeing the world in black and white isn't as bad as I thought. For me as an interpretive thinker, I thought there is some gray area. But in some situations, there really is no gray area. It's just black and white. And that's something that I have to come to terms with. Now, cause and effect relations are important, because if I hadn't studied for my driving exam, the effect would be me not getting my driver's license. So they are very important to my life, at least. And for my slogan, sometimes there is only one truth. Thank you.